My girlfriend told me she was with a friend, but that friend was with me picking out an engagement ring. How do I confront my girlfriend about her lie? Hey guys, oh my god, where to begin? My last post got way more attention than I could have ever imagined. Suffice to say, it was a tad bit overwhelming. Seriously, the amount of people begging for an update was a bit dehumanizing in a way. Like, I wasn't a person going through something, but more so a story. But I understand. Haha. I just want to thank you so much for all the support and wonderful comments. I got a lot of great advice that helped me tackle the issue head on. I also got a lot of really kind comments and messages. It was awesome. I also got a lot of comments that made me realize how toxic this sub can be. There were many comments that just said things like, "She's cheating, it's over," and "Don't even confront her, just leave." It's advice like that that can ruin relationships that just need a little work. And thank you to the people that told me to hit my girlfriend, told me I was an embarrassment to my gender, and best of all, told me I should encourage an affair because it would lead to great experiences for me later in life. You gave me a good chuckle. Now on to the update. I decided to confront my girlfriend. I thought about using some of the lies people suggested, but they just wouldn't make sense. To say I ran into Justine somewhere, well, I told my girl I had to stay home and do stuff around the house, and that's why I couldn't go with her to see my SIL. To say Justine was helping me pick out jewelry, it doesn't make sense for her to come all the way to our house to help me pick out a piece of jewelry unless it was a serious piece of jewelry, like an engagement ring. If I just wanted to get her a piece of jewelry as a gift, I'd ask her friends for suggestions or ask them to send me pictures of jewelry she might like. It all happens over text. None of the excuses made sense, so I decided to be honest. I basically just said that I knew we'd been thinking about marriage and she probably knew a proposal was coming soon, so I invited Justine over to help me find her perfect ring. And that so happened to be the day that she said she was going to see her. So what's the deal? She immediately started grinning like an idiot and prodding me about proposing and the ring. But then we got back onto the topic of where she was and she confessed what she was really doing. No, she wasn't cheating, and no, she wasn't picking out a ring for me. The amount of times that was commented was crazy. So some people are dog people and some people are cat people. Well, me, I'm a snake person. I grew up with snakes my whole life, but I never felt I was able to get one because my girlfriend has always been uneasy about living with a snake, which I completely understand. Also, the process of buying and raising a snake is very different than that of buying and raising a dog or cat. It's quite complicated. So you could imagine my surprise when my girlfriend showed me a picture of her holding the cutest Kenyan sand boa I've ever seen. Needless to say, my girlfriend was going to surprise me with a snake. We're picking her up next week. Let me know if you want a pet tax. She's so cute. I definitely did not expect this, and I feel bad for ruining the surprise, but oh well. Life is good. Sorry if this isn't the ending you guys wanted or expected. Just a snake, haha. Thanks for reading. You know, Reddit and the internet in general really can be a toxic place. There's a lot of trolls out there, a lot of people that hide behind screens and are willing to say things that they wouldn't say to that person if you're standing next to them, let's just say, pumping gas at the gas station, right? Are you going to get up in their face and suggest all these outlandish things? Probably not. So it's a shame that people felt the need to troll this person, but glad that there's no harm, and therefore, as they say, no harm, no foul. Moving on. Story 2. My 36M wife 38F will not let me take a nap. She always wakes me up or does her best to prevent me from falling asleep. What can I do to understand? Hello all. I work for an agricultural company where my weekly hours fluctuate between 60 and 120, while also working on getting a degree. My amazing bride is a homemaker by choice. All of this is okay. My issue comes from on occasion I'm exhausted and will start to fall asleep or will purposefully go try and take a nap. Our entire marriage, 11 years, she has woke me up or flat refused to let me fall asleep. I've tried talking to her numerous times and she's unable to articulate what the issue is. Today I got off early after 10 straight 16-hour days. Took her on a lunch date and then came home and decided to take a quick nap before working on school. Within minutes of laying down, she's come into the room and has begun shaking me, turning on lights and other obnoxious behavior. How can I articulate to her my need for an occasional nap? And how can I get her to articulate what her apparent unmet needs are so that I do not go insane? Because it is at a point where I'm feeling disrespected and unappreciated. Then there's an edit to the same post that came the next day. Edit. Thank you all so much for the responses. I've tried to read all of them and reply. Was truly not expecting this kind of response over what I thought was a me not communicating clearly problem. It is clear that there is more at play here, and I will be working with my therapist to develop two plans. One, much to many's dismay, to try and work with my bride one last time to address and fix the underlying issue, and two, a way out for if plan one fails. Again, thank you all for the kind words, the pointed yet truthful words, and even for some, the more extreme suggestions. There are truly great people left on the planet. Now let's check out the relevant comments here. OOP had hundreds, so I tried to really narrow it down. The wife is being a brat and disrespectful. Thank you for your candor. We definitely have some issues that stem from her personality. In all fairness, I'm not perfect. Your suggestion of napping at work has possibilities. I have an office with a couch, just had not ever considered it because of optics and not wanting my wife to think I'm falling back into my habit of working to avoid her. As for not leaving her, it stems from being unable to go against my word. I promised her hell and back as many times as it takes or until I croak. LOL. The commenter says, tell her to flat out leave you alone to nap when you need it, or you're thinking of separation as a way of solving her problem of not letting you sleep. It's been 11 years, so this is not something innocent. She's doing this on purpose. It's disrespectful and very annoying. You've put up with it for 11 years. So what's your next move? OOP says, thank you for your thoughts. I've considered separation in the past. My inability to break my word and some religious beliefs seem to have me stuck trying to fix a broken car with duct tape. Commenter says, does your religion have anything to say about staying in a physically abusive marriage? OP replies, essentially outside of sexual infidelity, leaving a marriage is unacceptable. I find this to be a trap, but I also know to leave means losing what little support I do have. It's a mess, plus my own issues, and it really gets complicated. Commenter says, sleep deprivation is a kind of torture. Quite frankly, I'm amazed that you haven't snapped and said something very cutting. I turn into a grumpy bear when I don't get enough sleep, and she's acting like a toddler. OP says, I have in the past. It was a point of contention in counseling for years. My reactions to her behavior, that is. I now try to respond and not react. Commenter says, in response to the above comment, my God, what did the counselor say? OP replies, to change my reactions to responses and to talk through the issue. She gave us some tools, but my wife has chosen to not practice them. Commenter says, I'm intrigued as to why you have an old habit of working to avoid her. People in happy and healthy relationships usually don't try to actively avoid one another. OP replies, she has moments where nothing is good enough, so I would use work to avoid her. The avoiding has not been an issue for several years now. Now when I work late, it's to pay bills. Commenter says, I can't imagine doing this to someone working that many hours, let alone someone I love. You need to have a heart-to-heart or go to counseling. OP replies, we've tried counseling and the only thing that changes is seemingly me, which the counselors say is wrong, but I'm not her dad. Paraphrasing, of course. So what do? Commenter replies, I feel this is abusive. You're working a lot of hours. You can lock the bedroom door and put on noise-canceling headphones, or, if you can, take a nap at work. My friend is a cop. She sometimes sleeps at my house. Because she has children and her husband is unable to stop the children from entering the bedroom when she needs to sleep. It's rare. It only happens when she's working a double. Do you have a friend who will allow you to sleep at their home when you need a break? OP replies, thank you for the suggestion. We do not have friends here. She's made it clear she does not want to associate with anyone from this area. I do my best to encourage her to get out of the house. She's done part-time work in the past and life is absolutely miserable. Commenter says, I simply wouldn't have married someone who doesn't let me take my almost daily nap, even on a cruise. Absolutely foul and crappy and rude. No way. OP says, the marriage had a not so great beginning, to be honest. Just trying to do my best to make it work. Commenter says, for what it's worth, when I was abused in this way, it was my mother. She has a personality disorder. OP replies, there are some undiagnosed issues at play. Getting her to go for help has proven impossible over the years. As a future therapist, is it really okay to give up on her? I truly have a lot of internal struggle on what to do. And then a reply to a longer comment came. You are kind and, like many of the others, very perceptive. You are right, she's incredibly intelligent. I just wish she would apply it. I'm still in individual therapy. My therapist and I have identified the source, or what we believe is the source, of my willingness to stay. Now, changing something that took root in early childhood is proving difficult. The commenter replies, I'm not buying 120 hours a week. That would leave you 6.85 hours per day for sleeping, showering, going on lunch dates, bills, driving to and from work, brushing your teeth, eating breakfast and dinner, packing a lunch, and any other daily task that is done at a bare minimum. And that's coming from someone who's worked 110-hour weeks before. It's such an unreasonable stretch to do them. Unless you're paying for everyone to wait on you hand and foot, and you're counting your commute to work as working time. So therefore, I'm not buying the rest of the story because it seems embellished or over-exaggerated anyway. OP says, sadly it is true, your math is correct. There is no time. The lunch dates only happen when I get off early, like yesterday. Also, the insane hours only last for a few months, then taper back to 60. But during that stretch, I do not sleep much. Gotten used to it over the years, but it gets harder every year. My job is seasonal in that I work like an insane person for 2 months, get a month or two break, and then back to insane. Over the years, I've gained some control over the amount of hours, but when you need money, you work when you can. Hard to feed and shelter 2 people on $50K gross. And then replied to another, the insane hours are seasonal. My standard week is 60 hours. We have built structures that give us couple time. For instance, on normal weeks, the first 2 hours I'm home are couple time. I also try to do as much school as possible at work. Usually Sunday afternoons are my big school days, as that's when I write my papers. So I agree, there's probably a loneliness issue, I just do not know how else to solve it. And the commenter says, NTA for the naps, but YTA for the cringy use of bride. OP says, it's what she has wanted to be called. And this is OP's work and wife's hobbies. Outside of her animals and the occasional trip to see her sister, she chooses to stay at home doing I really don't know what. There are issues that need to be addressed with therapy that she refuses to address. We've done couples counseling in the past, and the result was me being identified as the issue due to my reactions to her different behaviors. I should finish my bachelor's degree next year. That will allow me to make a move away. I have thought about making the move now, but the pay cut will be insane without a degree, and I'm comfortable and well-versed in my current role, which enables me to balance work, school, and in less busy seasons, my marriage. Concerned that a move at this moment would be overwhelming. And here, OOP explains his past and the beginning of the marriage. I can share some of the stuff I've processed. I was abused as a child in several ways, and when my parents found out about one particular way, they chose to punish me, which started a cycle of internalizing, and since then, I've always thought I deserve anything that happens, especially the not so pleasant. I had anger issues for a long time. I'm happy to say that I've learned to have relatively decent anger control at this point. My therapist and I are working on changing how I perceive myself. Not going well, clearly. The marriage started with her telling me she was pregnant, and then turned out to be a lie that I did not discover until after the marriage, then a further explanation of marriage. Given the state of my blood pressure, it is definitely not hyperbole. She claimed she was pregnant. Naturally, I wanted to do the honorable thing. It really isn't, and the fact that society says it is asinine, and married her. Found out that she is incapable of having children. Had already given my vow at that point, so stayed. It was hell for both of us the first few years. Went to therapy to save the marriage, sunk cause fallacy and religion mixed with my own issues, and all that changed was me. All of this has been mentioned in other replies, but buried nonetheless. One more. You are correct. The simple answer is I've hated myself since childhood. I'm working on it. Not easy to change something that was ingrained into you so young. You're also correct when I would not treat someone like I do myself. Then a mini update came in the comments almost 3 weeks later. I have no clue how to do an update, so all can see it. We tried having a conversation the Monday after the original post that turned into insanity. Came home late 2 days later to the house completely empty. She even took the curtains, curtain rods, and the hangers, leaving holes in the wall. She has since turned everything as my fault and demanding to come back so she can help me. I have a meeting with an attorney scheduled. And then another update post came 11 days later, which was 1 month from the OG post. Update. The Monday after making the post, she picked a fight over the yard not being mowed. After telling her I was done with the way she was behaving, she refused to accept this and said she would never leave. Fast forward to Wednesday night. I come home late again to find 2 vehicles with trailers loaded with everything we owned, minus papers and her designer bags. When I walked in the house, she and her family left. Thankfully, the landlord had a couch that I could sleep on using my clothes as bedding because they took everything needed to live, including yanking the curtains and curtain rods off the wall. Thursday night I came home and she was back. This time, she tried picking a fight by chasing me around the house and lunging at me. When I told her I would call the sheriff if she did not leave, she began twisting and hitting her forearm, screaming she was going to hurt herself and tell the sheriffs I hurt her. I left the house and called the sheriffs for help. They were able to provide me a way to leave as her family was on the way back. Since then, she has sent 2,000 text messages flipping between wanting to come back and me being the worst man alive. My attorney filed for a petition for divorce this past Friday. She will be served this week and I'm anticipating her to go postal. If anything happens, I'll let all you great folks know. Thank each and every one of you that commented on the original post. It was you who opened my eyes and helped me take the opportunity of her leaving to end this nightmare. Let's check out some more relevant comments here. So one commenter says, set up cameras in case she comes back and threatens to hurt herself and blame you again. OP says, installed a ring camera, and if she shows up, she'll be criminally trespassed from the property. And then to another, locks were changed the day after her trying to get me arrested. Another commenter says, honestly, I'm so relieved for you that the hard part is done. Do not take her back. You may be out of furnishings and curtains, but you have your livelihood and you will no longer have to support her. And you can nap whenever you want. She sounds immature and abusive. I would recommend recording any further interactions with her. I'm really glad the sheriff helped you out of the last situation. If she was willing to hurt herself to frame you, who knows what else she's capable of. OP says, there is no going back. Thankfully, my attorney was swift and shrewd. He filed for final hearing at the same time as the petition, so we're set to finish this nightmare quickly. Final, hopefully, hearing is set for September 18th. He read the text and noted how crazy she was and decided this needed to end ASAP. Commenter says, it's good that she's not thinking ahead about how damaging her texts are. Will you need to pay alimony? How long did she stay home? OP replies, attorney said he feels confident that since there are not any children and she is not disabled, there will not be any spousal maintenance awarded in the final decree, though I may have to pay temporary leading up to the final hearing. And then to another, Texas is a difficult state to get spousal maintenance in, or so I'm told, by the laws, and it looks difficult, but I'm not the sharpest crayon in the box, so I could be wrong. Commenter says, it's not really a nightmare if you're allowed to sleep though, right? I'll see myself out. Seriously though, I'm glad it's worked out. Keep all the texts and install cameras if you can. Only communicate with her by text, if you have to at all. Or, if it's a one-party consent state, then record all conversations. I'd also start a list of all the items she took. It's marital property, and you're entitled to half of it, I would assume. Please tell us that she's not on any banking/savings/retirement accounts. OP says, she's on all the accounts. Have opened a new account, and my paycheck goes in there. I've refused to communicate outside of text. I just submitted 303 pages of text from the last 28 days to my attorney. Nice joke, by the way. Commenter says, could you go stay with a friend for a few days after she served? Or have someone go stay with you? OP says, my brother has offered both options. Feels cowardly for someone my size to be fearful of someone smaller, but I think about cases like Jodi Arias, and I think it's better safe than sorry. Commenter's response, and if she took anything of value that belongs solely to you, I'd advise you to gather all proof of the items and sue her after your divorce is final. I would assume she took a lot of things if all she left was your clothing. It's also up to you if you want to sue for half the value of all the household items she took. And OP replied, she did take several items of value. She has since brought some stuff back, just leaving it in front of the garage where it could have been stolen while I was at work. Not much was brought back, but at least my golf clubs came back. Though, if I'm honest, she can keep it all. I do not want anything but to be away from her and to not have to pay her a cent more. And then this was on starting to see past red flags. Yes, as more time away from her passes, I've been able to reflect on our marriage. My goodness, it was a toxic mess. Now we've got a comment here that was apparently made by OP's ex. Lester, this is all incorrect and false information. You were the one who got mad at me for no reason and started screaming at me to get my belongings and get out and divorce in my face. Not once, but multiple times, and literally like 6 times, which I never did that to you, nor did I leave. You kicked me out and went to sleep on the couch. I didn't force you to sleep on the couch. Also, don't let him fool you. He had 3 extra beds at that which belonged to the landlord. Also, that furniture is and was mine, as I have accumulated it before we were married. Little hint that technically it really wasn't my furniture in the first place. It belonged to my mom, so the route you're taking is not the right and best option. Also, maybe you should leave other people out of our marriage as well. Also, you told your dad a lie because, again, as I go back to where you had 3 extra beds available and that you chose to sleep on the couch, so please don't let him fool you all. Also, he forgot to mention that he put me, his wife, out on the highway with a pickup that needs lots of maintenance: shocks, struts, all 4 wheel bearings replaced, alignment, all 4 tires where they were so bald and bare to where the wire was showing, and I had no help from him to help me get it fixed to where it was safe and not jeopardizing my life or other people's lives. Thankfully, Jesus was with me this whole time during this time and whenever I would go to work. And OP replies to this, "Do not lie nor forget I have receipts to prove everything, including your stalking me and breaking into my home and using a phone you turned off to impersonate me." Story 3. New and final update. Am I the a-hole for telling my husband's affair baby's family to either come get the kid or I'm calling CPS? My F53, soon-to-be ex-husband Roger, 47, whom I forgave for his affair, came home with a baby 4 months ago. His girlfriend, 22, could not handle it anymore and brought the baby to him at work and left. To the best of his knowledge, she is in Spain. I allowed him to stay so long as I didn't have to do anything. Well, about a month ago, Roger had a heart attack. It didn't kill him, more's the pity, but he is very weak and incapable of doing anything for himself. Since he isn't up and about, he cannot care for his child. He also cannot drop off and pick up his son at daycare. I've been helping out, but I'm done. My kids are full grown. I shouldn't be having grandkids anytime soon. I do not have any desire to care for a baby. I told Roger that I want a divorce, and I contacted the mother's parents. I know the father through friends. I said they had until Friday to come get their grandchild or I was calling Child Protective Services. They just left with the baby, but they scolded me for being so cold towards a baby that had done me no harm. I view that child differently. Roger is recovering and I will be moving out. The house is in his name, but I have never contributed to it. I have the equivalent of 22 years of rent and interest put away, and as per our prenup, my savings are my own. I work and I don't need anything out of this marriage except myself. My kids tried telling me to stay and help their father. I said that they are welcome to come over and help him with cleaning himself and the baby. Both declined what I felt was a fair offer. I do not feel that I'm acting badly. However, Roger, our children, his child's family, and a few mutual friends think I am. Perhaps writing this out and seeing the responses will give me clarity. Now let's jump into the relevant comments here. First commenter says, NTA, that child was not your responsibility. Yes, it was innocent, but you're literally not responsible for raising it. You should have divorced Roger long ago. OP says, and God forbid something happens, I literally cannot make any decisions regarding medical care or anything. Then another commenter says, fake NTA. Seriously? The kid is 4 months old. You could not have possibly forgiven anyone for this level of betrayal. If you've been married for decades, it's your house, so get what you're owed. OP says, I think the baby is almost a year old. The house was a premarital asset on our prenup. Commenter says, I looked at lots of these comments, OP. You are NTA for returning the baby to blood relatives who can look after it. But don't be the a-hole yourself by abandoning your home without consulting an attorney and making sure you aren't entitled to some of the equity or some of his retirement savings. Don't walk away without getting all that is yours. You said that you have 22 years worth of savings. That's not a lifetime worth. You might need more to be okay, and you should make sure to get it on your way out. OP replies, I have a little over $1 million in investments. I'll be fine. He paid for everything. I kept all my money. And then this comment was downvoted, but OOP's reply made me laugh. Commenter said, women these days are cold AF. And OOP replies, I can forward you their info if you're volunteering to take over. Now let's check out an update post that came almost 1 month later. I'm no longer divorcing Roger. There were complications from his heart attack and he's passed away. I'm conflicted. He was the love of my love, but also a cheating piece of trash. To the best of my knowledge, the mother will not return from Europe. The child is currently with her parents. They asked me what I wanted to do. I recommended adoption. Not that I adopt the child, that they put the child up for adoption. They didn't like that suggestion. Neither did my children. They said I'm being cold and cruel. I suggested that since the child was related to them and not to me, that they step up. Neither has accepted that suggestion either. I was the sole beneficiary of Roger's estate, so I imagine lawyers will be involved in getting the child some sort of support. I will pay whatever is ordered by the court out of the estate. I will not pay 1 cent out of my money. That is all I have to say on this matter. Now let's check out some more relevant comments. One is about the ages of OP's kids. They are adults. And then now to a deleted comment. I found out about the affair over a year ago. Nothing about this is convenient. And then a downvoted commenter says, so apparently the affair wasn't that much of a problem, as you said you forgave them for that. But after he has a heart attack, you decide to divorce him? It just doesn't add up. OP says, I was not responsible for the child. Commenter says, true, that doesn't explain the divorce. I mean, you can divide for whatever reason. You do you. To me, however, infidelity seems like a better reason to divorce than having a heart attack. OP replies, I was not to care for the child at all. It was all on Roger. Can you explain how a bedridden man was to care for an infant? Commenter says, I agree, you have zero responsibility to the child. However, if your kids did adopt, how would you feel about that, as the baby would then be your grandchild? OP says, adopted grandchildren are great. And then to another, new grandchild. I would do my best to treat them as such. Then downvoted commenter says, Roger's will may have omitted the child due to the child not being around when it was written. The child should inherit a portion. The child should be eligible for Social Security survivor benefits. Baby needs a lawyer, ASAP. OP says, Roger's will also omitted his 2 adult children. The downvoted commenter says, you are evil. You wished him dead, now he is. I hope you at least feel a little remorse for what you said. OP replies, I don't. He broke me. Then to another commenter, we were getting divorced for a reason. Downvoted commenter says, 70% of the posts here are fake. Yeah, my husband just died and I'm dealing with this child situation on top of it. Definitely gonna post it on Reddit. OP replies, the situation has been dealt with. I was asked by several people for an update. I have fulfilled those requests. Then OP responds to so many people telling her she needs to help the child. Why does anyone think I have the right to place the child with anyone besides family? I'm not in any way related to this child, and the child is currently with their grandparents, blood relatives, with standing in legal matters. So let's just quickly go over a timeline based on OP's listing of events. So 1, OOP found out about the affair a year ago, let's say May 2023. At the time, she forgave the husband. 2, in January-ish of this year, 4 months from the OG post, the baby was dropped off. Husband promised to take care of the baby. 3, the husband had a heart attack sometime in April, a month before the OG post. And 4, sometime between May and June of 2024, the husband passed away. And then we get a new update post 12 days later, 1.5 months from the OG post. The girl's parents finally did the right thing and cut her off. I had passed along her contact information to several dozen Redditors who seemed eager to help. Just an email. I did not reveal their identities or even their names. I believe this pressure convinced them to act. They finally got the clue that I would in no way take any responsibility for the child. Between her parents no longer funding her and the current climate in Spain against visitors, the child's mother has returned. I've washed my hands of the entire situation, except for one thing. I've spoken with the lawyers and I'll be splitting some of Roger's estate into 3 parts for the children. My children will get theirs immediately as they're adults. The child's money will be going into a trust with his brother and sister as the trustees. This will take some doing and, as such, will mean more money goes to the lawyers. Perhaps Shakespeare was correct with regards to that profession. My children are now less enthusiastic about their young sibling, but that is neither here nor there. They were the ones who insisted I involve myself. If there is anything left when I pass, they can split that between themselves, as I will not be leaving anything to that child. Thank you all for your help in my reaching clarity. I was letting my anger cloud my judgment and sense of fairness. Let's read some more relevant comments here. So, commenter says, I'm glad this is over. The kid deserves better than he's gotten. Not that he was your responsibility in any way. I do like that you used concerned Redditors for assistance. Nope, he replies, yes, that's one of the reasons I felt it was apt to post one last time. I appreciate that people were willing to step in to help. Commenter says, they were paying her to stay away from this crap show? Why? OP says, not for me to say. And then to another about why she returned and the climate in Spain being against visitors. I was guessing as to the motivation for her return. All I know for certain is that her parents stopped paying her bills. Commenter replies, nice. You got to a resolution. I wish it didn't have to be so effed up from the beginning for you, but I'm happy there's an end now. Best wishes going forward, OP. No, OP replies, if I'm to be honest, I'm the happiest for the child. He is with his mother and grandparents, and Spain is terribly hot in the summer anyway, so she isn't missing much. Commenter says, so the Sibs wanted you to, quote, do the right thing to a kid that shares no blood with you, but them taking in their blood relative wasn't an option for either of them? And then have the gall to get mad their inheritance gets split 3 ways? OP replies, there was no inheritance. I was the sole beneficiary of Roger's estate. I just decided to help my children before I'm too old to watch them get any benefit from the money. And the child deserves a share. It's not his fault that his father was a philanderer and his mother is a callow. Commenter replies, I say inheritance because it's money they wouldn't have had otherwise, but them getting mad that you included their sibling when it comes to money, but not willing to step up to care for their sibling, but expecting you to care for someone who is a constant reminder of your husband's betrayal is telling. If anyone has a right to be mad, it's you. OP says, I'm past anger. I'm at acceptance. The commenter says, was there ever a DNA test done to conclusively prove paternity? Before setting up the trust, it might be wise to do so. OP replies, yes, I insisted on one when the child first came to live with Roger. Commenter says, it's not over. She'll sue his estate for child support. OP says, it will come out of the child's trust if she succeeds. So we've already covered this story a couple of weeks ago, but added a little update there at the end. So it sounds like finally there's been a bit of a resolution. And OP, I love that last line there, that if she tries to sue the estate for child support, it's going to come out of the child's trust. It's like, nope, already thought of that. We're going to shut that down right away. So I think we're finally good to move on from this. I think it's probably the best possible outcome that could have unfolded. So let's move on. Story 4. My 32F wife 31F wants to become a full-time housewife after years of studying to become a doctor, but I'm totally against it. Hello, I, 32F, have been with my wife, 31F, since our second year of high school. From what I remember, she has always wanted to become a doctor, a pediatric doctor to be exact. While I kept changing my mind and was continuously unsure about what I wanted, my wife was extremely dedicated on wanting to be a pediatric doctor. I've seen her study her butt off in college and cry from frustration as she studied. Seeing her work so hard gave me the motivation to finish school and become a lawyer. We've been each other's biggest supporters throughout this journey. From working odd jobs to support ourselves, having cheap dates at the park, and crying from stress and frustration, it was like finally seeing the end of the tunnel with my partner next to me the entire time. We got married right after I graduated from law school and started living in a bigger place with the money we had saved together. She finished her internship this year and is about to legally become a licensed doctor. However, her happy tune about becoming a doctor suddenly changed. I'm not really sure when her obsession with becoming a housewife started, but seeing her go from being a career-oriented woman with hopes and dreams to wanting to become a housewife gave me severe whiplash. I just couldn't understand what could make her change her mind so suddenly. I tried asking about it and she said something along the lines of, I just want to cook and clean for you. Live a simple life. I assumed that maybe she was feeling lonely since I've been working a lot, so I told her we'd go on more dates and spend more time together, but again, she insisted that she wanted to be a housewife. Don't get me wrong, I don't think there's anything wrong with being a housewife, but to give up your long years of studying and hard work to stay at home and cook is absurd. We're already splitting the chores at home, and we've been on very equal footing since forever. I just can't seem to read her. Maybe being a doctor just isn't for her? Or perhaps she got bored. I just don't get it. I want her to do what makes her happy because I truly love her and she's my entire world, but is stopping everything and throwing away the chance of having one of the most respectable jobs on earth just to stay at home and do chores really worth it? Maybe I'm asking the wrong questions. Maybe she's trying to tell me something and I'm being dense. I wish I could read her mind. I just don't get it. At the end of the day, I just want to know why and maybe convince her otherwise. As much as I think that it's a bad idea, it's still her life, but I don't think I'll ever be able to forgive myself if I let her throw her career away. Let's jump straight into the relevant comments here. User 1 says, I worry about the lack of communication between you two. She's expressing a desire, but not saying why. You want to guess the reason, but don't want to ask her for some reason? You also want to talk her out of it without even knowing her reasoning. Are you totally against it no matter what, or just totally against it because you're making huge assumptions about why? OP says, Hello, I must admit that my initial reaction wasn't great. I had given her all the reasons as to why it's not a good idea to throw her hard work all away and assume the possible reasonings all on my own. Thank you for pointing that out to me, as I haven't even noticed this myself. In the moment, I only thought about what I personally thought would be good for my wife, rather than what she thinks is good for her. Again, I thank you for your honesty. And then an update post came 6 months later. This is the link to the original post I made a few months ago, in case you're wondering what I'm referring to. Hello everyone, I realize that it's been quite some time since I've made this post, and I apologize for updating you all so late. If I'm being honest, this post slipped my mind completely. My wife and I were going through our own healing journey, and I simply wanted to focus on her. However, things are much better now, and both my wife and I are content with our lives. Here's a proper and pretty lengthy update for the ones who were curious about how my wife and I were holding up now. For one, she's working to finish her residency. I'm so incredibly proud of her for pushing through, even with all the odds against her. She's incredibly hardworking, and I'll always be there for her. Through the past few months, I had to revisit a lot of areas within our relationship. For one, the status of our relationship was worse than I imagined. There were major life events in her life that I would have never known about if I hadn't broken the growing wall between us. My wife has always been a hard worker, and because simple encouragement always seemed to be enough to boost her morale, I assumed that this was still the case. I was terribly wrong. My wife needed a friend, a shoulder to lean on, a confidant and a lover. But during her very difficult year, I was none of those things. As her wife, I failed to give her the proper love and support she desperately needed and deserved. Not only was she burnt out, but because I intentionally put work before her, I wounded her deeply. Our intimacy was practically non-existent. Our conversations never went beyond surface-level subjects, and sometimes the only time we'd see one another was when one of us was already long asleep. Whenever I would ask her if she was okay, she always told me she was fine, which I doubted. But since I didn't want to push her, I stopped asking. That's where I made my mistake. Asking wasn't enough. I was foolish. We barely saw each other, did anything together, shared words of endearment, or basked in each other's presence. Intimacy just seemed so foreign between us. Like a fool, I thought, hey, I asked if she was okay and she said she was fine. My job here is done. I never once tried to give her the reassurance that I was someone she could depend on, that I was ready to sit and listen, that she could complain to me about the same thing over and over again, and that I'd still listen with just as much attention. During a time of great stress, I was everything but helpful. The distance between us was growing pretty rapidly, and it's only after her insistence on becoming a housewife that this veil was lifted. Thanks to my initial post, I received a lot of helpful criticism both online and in real life. It took a lot of personal reflection. Initially, I thought applying what I was told would be a piece of cake, but seeing myself struggle to approach her made me realize how much we had truly grown apart. Little things like her hair, the bags under her eyes, or even her choice of clothes all changed. My wife has always been someone who enjoyed dressing up. Pastel colors are her favorite. Weird earrings she finds from God knows where. Shoes, makeup, sweets. Little things that made her suddenly stopped appearing. Again, I tried to argue that because she works in a hospital, her style of choice was most likely limited. But even when she was home, it was different. Guilt was eating me alive. My hands would tingle in pain just thinking about the burden she must be carrying all on her own. I decided to stop acting oblivious. Even if I had to do something I deemed as awkward or unnatural, I was going to push through because she deserves better. I began to initiate simple intimacy. If it meant simple hand-holding or working in the same room as her, I did it. I no longer asked if she was okay, but instead let her know that I would always be there for her whenever she needed me. She's my priority. Although it took some time, I was able to coax her into confiding in me again. We did revisit the housewife thing after a few months. She admitted that this feeling came from a deep sense of loneliness, stress, feeling burnt out, and the witness of a child's death. It was her first time witnessing a gradual, inevitable death and had grown quite attached to both the child and the mother, who happened to be our age. This made the entire tragedy even more painful. However, my wife is still a doctor and things move quickly. She tried forgetting about it and moving on, but the realization of the weight she carries as a health professional kind of became burdening. She began questioning her years of study, her skill, her abilities. Things that she took great pride in turned into insecurities. Eventually, she came across aesthetically pleasing life as a housewife content on YouTube. The idea of never having to go through such stress and heartbreak seemed so freeing to her, no longer having to see children in poor conditions, focusing on herself, her home, her own personal life, and our relationship. To be completely honest, I didn't know how to comfort her. For one, I'm not a health professional. Whenever I curiously looked at her notes, my head would start spinning, seeing words that seemed so foreign. Our careers differ so much from one another that I didn't know what would be appropriate to say. What can you possibly say to someone going through this type of heartbreak? With my limited knowledge, I told her that she shouldn't carry that burden and blame herself. People are quick to run to doctors whenever they get the slightest symptoms because they know that a doctor knows best. You naturally bring comfort, a sense of relief and safety. To me, she's no different than a superhero. The joy she brought to that child stuck with her right until her final moments, and that's something she should be proud of. The child was able to live a little longer and experience so much more joy because of her kindness and expertise. We revisited this conversation a lot, and every time I listened. Eventually, she gained a lot more confidence. She relied on her supervisor as well, who's been in the field way before either of us were even born. Seeing her get better day by day made me so incredibly happy. We're at such a great place in our relationship right now. I love hearing her voice, seeing her, being near her, and being there for her. I missed her so much. I don't know how we went so long without speaking properly. She's my best friend, my family. I want to say that I wish I had known what to do sooner, but this entire incident was necessary. I believe it is. It brought us so much closer. We're family, and speaking about heavy subjects shouldn't be odd between us. I learned a lot about my wife, myself, and our relationship. I'm very happy with how things are going. Although we're still busy, we always find some time for ourselves. We also recently adopted 2 cats. I know a lot of people suggested that perhaps my wife was getting baby fever, but I assure you, our kittens definitely taught us that kids probably aren't meant for us. Not anytime soon, anyway. Thank you again for being so kind and honest with me. I'm excited to learn more and deepen our emotional connection, and I can only see a brighter future ahead. Let's jump into the relevant comments here. User 1 says, honestly, this is very refreshing. I agree with the other posters that your wife does need to set up someone/something to be her support system, like a counselor. I wouldn't be surprised to find out that her work offers these things. It's maintenance, like trimming grass or toenails, and should not be viewed as something shameful at all. OOP replies, thank you. I absolutely agree. My wife grew up in an environment where mental health is viewed as something that eventually passes like a common cold, so seeking mental health support has never been a thought. However, it is something that we most definitely want to look into now that we've distanced ourselves from said environment. This is a sweet story. Glad they were able to work through their issues and come up with a plan moving forward for their future together. Seems like everything is going well here for OP and the wife, so congratulations, good for y'all. Story 5. Am I wrong for not supporting my wife's surrogate pregnancy? New update. My wife and I have been married for about 3 years, together for 5. She has a 16-year-old daughter she gave birth to when she was a teen, but we both decided we don't want to have children with her and I. My wife's best friend asked her to surrogate for him and his husband, and she agreed. I opposed to this, but she told me to deal with it. I told her fine, but don't expect any help from me. Now she's uncomfortable being pregnant. She's feeling nauseous, tired, and sore. I still do the things I would do if she wasn't pregnant, but when she complains about cravings or needing something from the store for her pregnancy, I tell her to call her best friend. Her best friend and his husband are calling me an a-hole, but I remind them that isn't my baby and not my responsibility. Now let's read relevant comments here. User 1 says, whose egg was used to make the embryo? Hoping not hers. That would just take this to a whole different level. Are they paying her a surrogate fee? I feel sorry for OP. I would not be surprised if he leaves her over this, and I really couldn't blame him. Her ignoring his views is very hurtful. OP says, no, it's not my wife's egg. It was a donor, not sure who, but she doesn't have any connections to me or my wife. Well, at least not before this. And then replying to a comment saying she wants no children with OP but willing to be a surrogate. This is unfair to my wife. I mean, we both don't want children of our own. My wife is happy only having her daughter, and I'm happy being just a stepdad, on if his wife is getting paid. Nope, they're not paying her. They're paying for all the medical and legal fees involved, but not paying my wife. I don't think my wife even considered getting paid for this. And then we get an update post. Hello everyone, my wife and I had a talk and agreed on a few things. She says she's sorry for making this decision despite my objections. We had a lengthy heart-to-heart about this. We agreed that we would go to marriage counseling after the pregnancy is done, and she's had some time to recover. We also agreed that she should live with her best friend and his husband for the time of the surrogacy. We talked to them and they both agreed to it. Her daughter, my stepdaughter, said she wanted to stay in our current home. She doesn't feel comfortable intruding into someone else's home, so she's staying with me at our home. My wife very rarely apologizes. I don't want to give up on this marriage, so I'm willing to work through this. And then here's some additional info from OP. User 1 says, how far along is she? This doesn't seem healthy for your marriage, especially if she's in the first trimester. Months apart while you're in charge of your stepdaughter? Why can't you start marriage counseling now, virtually? She apologized, but is now running away to be babied by her friends while you're home alone with her daughter. OP says, how far along is she? About 6 months in. Months apart while you're in charge of your stepdaughter? We're not going to see each other for all those months. She'll primarily stay at her friends to make sure that her and the baby are comfortable. We also discussed that if her or her friends don't feel comfortable, she will move back in and we'll figure something else out. Also, my stepdaughter is pretty independent and responsible. She's 16, so it's not like I'm taking care of a baby. And we agreed that my stepdaughter can see her mom at any time if she needs to. Now we've got a new update that was posted 3 months later. She gave birth. Thankfully, there were no complications. My wife is still recovering, but the doctors say both her and the baby are good. Something my wife and I decided to do is to do marriage counseling before she gave birth, even though the original plan was to wait till she gave birth. We both started to really miss each other while she was with her friends, but we know there was tension between us. It took a while for us to find a therapist whom we both felt like he could deal with our unique situation. We did find someone we both really liked. We talked about how we felt and how we need to make major decisions together and take the other person's feelings into consideration. We're still gonna go to more sessions, but we're gonna wait until my wife feels better. She's back home, by the way. Her friends have covered all the legal and medical expenses. They also insisted on paying my wife for what she's done for them. My wife has promised me she won't ever make a decision like this without me. I'm currently taking care of her. I know what I said, but I still love my wife and I don't like seeing her so tired. One last thing. Some of y'all really tried to hammer in, she had another man's baby, as if she promised me to have the baby. I don't see my wife as an incubator. I don't even want children of my own. Don't make it sound like she cheated on me. She didn't. Yeah, that's a pretty crappy situation to be put in by OP. The one comment that he made that I didn't necessarily agree with was when, at the very beginning, and again, he may have been angry or frustrated in saying this, but when he said, not my baby, not my problem. But while that's true, it is your wife, so therefore it is your problem. You can't just go straight up laissez-faire and, let your wife be sick and miserable just because you didn't want her to serve as a surrogate. So, sounds like they're on the right path now. But yeah, that one comment, that's really the only thing. That one comment just kind of rubbed me personally the wrong way. But otherwise, yeah, he has every right to be frustrated. Story 6. Am I the a-hole for saying that my kids are the most important reason I would never cheat on my wife? My wife is upset at me of a conversation I had with one of my ex-friends this weekend. I wanted to get a neutral opinion on what if I said was horrible and disrespectful to my wife. Just a warning that I'm writing about a very sensitive topic and may be triggering to some people. I've been friends with Jason, 38M, since high school. Our families are also close, and our kids are of similar age. For context, Jason is married and has 2 young girls. Last month, Jason's wife, Bree, got anonymous messages about Jason cheating on her. She snooped around and learned that Jason was having a 2-year-long affair with one of his coworkers. Bree was devastated and reached out to my wife. My wife and I supported Bree, and she confronted Jason and kicked him out of the house. He's living with his parents now and trying everything possible to talk to Bree and make things right. I was faced with a tough decision, but needed to be there for Bree and the kids and cut contact with Jason. He's been messaging me and trying to talk to me since then. Last week, his mom reached out to me and told me that Jason was not doing well and having panic attacks and wanted to talk to me. I was reluctant, and despite my wife's protest, I decided to talk to him. He came to my house on Friday evening. My wife did not want to see him and stayed in our bedroom along with the kids. Jason was very apologetic and started telling me how he is so angry at himself and how he broke up with his AP in order to make things right with his wife. He told me that he is also planning to leave his job and would do anything to get back with Bree and see the kids. He wanted me to talk to Bree so that he can at least discuss the situation and then they can work on their marriage. I've never seen him cry and it was just horrible. He started complaining about how Bree has been ignoring him for the last several years and they were having problems, and that led him to make such a horrible mistake. I know it's not my place, but I completely lost it on him and told him to stop blaming Bree. If he had problems with her, she should have worked with her to solve it. Cheating on her is the worst thing he could have done to her, and he has no idea how hurt Bree is due to all this. I told him that he not only hurt Bree, but also effed up his kids' lives. They did not do anything wrong and now have to suffer due to his selfish behavior. I told him that I know that husbands and wives may have problems, but his actions are punishing his kids, and their lives will never be the same after this. I told him that I'm angrier at him that he destroyed his girls' lives, and he is a monster if he did not think of them before cheating on his wife. We both argued for a while, and eventually I told him that I cannot help him in this situation, and we will stand in Bree's corner and make sure she and the kids are taken care of. He left after that. My wife was appreciative that I did not support Jason and did not let him blame Bree for his horrible actions. Before sleeping, my wife asked me why I focused on telling Jason that he should not have cheated because of the kids. She said that Bree's life is also destroyed, and she's never going to emotionally or financially recover from this for a long time. She feels that the kids are collateral damage, but Bree should be the reason why Jason should not have cheated. I told my wife that from my perspective, I feel worse for the kids because they had such a nice, stable home, and Jason effed it up for everyone. My wife told me that she knows I would never cheat on her, but if I was tempted to cheat, would I stop myself because I love her, or would it be because of our kids? We also have 2 girls. I told her that the main reason I would not do it is because I have morals, but if I was playing her game, I would stop myself because I would never want my daughters to go through this horrible situation. My wife is upset at the answer because she feels that she should be the number one reason why I would not cheat. I understand her point and I love her very much. However, I really want my daughters to have a wonderful, perfect life with 2 loving parents, and that would be the main reason I would never do anything to sabotage it. Am I the a-hole because I prioritize my daughter's happiness over the love towards my wife? Is that a normal thing to do, or is my wife right? And she should always be my number one priority. AITAH has no consensus bot, but OOP received the majority of NTAs with a few YTAs. User 1 says, no one is the a-hole. This has always been a big debate. Are the kids the number one priority, or is the spouse the number one priority? Personally, I see the spouse as the number one priority, since you need a good marriage to properly raise your children, and it is the main and best way to lead by example of how they should and be expected to be treated in a relationship, plus the multitude of benefits it has for the children. But I see the points of the other side. OP says, I guess I see the point too. However, my heart broke for the girls during the last month. That was on top of my mind. I talked to them over the last month, and while the youngest is too young to understand anything, the older one knows what was going on, and you could see the hurt in her eyes. User 2 says, I can see both sides. In my opinion, the spouse comes first. How you are in your marriage shows them what to do and what not to do in their future relationships. Just because the spouse is number one does not at all mean you do not love and prioritize your children. It means you love the kids enough to have a stable relationship, show them how to properly love someone, show them how to treat their spouse. Let's say they never have kids. The groundwork for how a relationship is supposed to be starts with you. I don't think either of you are the a-hole. Neither of you wants your kids to suffer. I always think that at the end of the day, your spouse is the only one that chose to love you. Your parents love you because you're their child. Your kids love you because you're their dad. Your wife loves you for you. That to me would be enough reason to not cheat, even if you don't have kids. OP says, agreed. Luckily, my parents are still together. However, growing up, I've seen many of my friends go through this and saw their personalities completely change. That may be the reason for my viewpoint. And then an update post came later on. I wanted to thank everyone for all of your suggestions and comments on my post from last week. The week has been crazy, and I'm just left numb since what happened yesterday. Can't help but blame myself for the mess that happened so far. The issue is that my friend Jason was caught cheating on his wife last month, and when I had a heated argument with him last week, I told him that he should have thought about his kids before starting a 2-year-long affair with a coworker. My wife heard the conversation and was upset that his wife Bree was the one who was wrong the most, and I should not have told him that his kids should be the number one reason he should have not cheated. I agree with all of you who said that the comments I made were horrible, but it was just an emotional week and not sure I'm thinking about things right. On the night I posted here, I had a very long conversation with my wife. I apologized to her for telling her that our daughter's happiness would be the main reason why I would never do anything to hurt our family. I told her that she's the love of my life and how much I value all the things she's done for us. I understand that she's my wife, and I made a vow to her to be with her forever, and I understand how my statement was hurtful to her. She was luckily very understanding and told me not to worry about her. She said that she was hurt in that moment, but understands how much I love our kids. She did ask me why I even kept on bringing up kids during my conversation with Jason, as that was the point in my argument with Jason where I lost my cool. The thing was, when Bree kicked out Jason after learning about the affair, she was a mess. Bree is a SAHM and does not have many friends. My wife is probably the closest friend of Bree, and hence she called my wife to tell her about what happened. As my wife went to her place, I volunteered to pick up Jason's daughters and bring them to our house to give Bree some space. Bree was having a mental breakdown since the incident, and my wife chose to stay at her place to look after her. I was watching the kids for 4 nights, until Bree was okay enough to take care of them. Jason's older daughter, who is 8, kind of understood what was happening. However, his younger daughter is 4 and was just missing her parents. She is Daddy's girl and kept on insisting on me to call Jason to our place. It was heartbreaking to look at her and feel how irreparably her life will be affected because of Jason's selfish decisions. I just felt very sad inside during the whole situation. I understand that it is Bree and Jason's relationship, and I don't get to have a say, but I feel that was the main reason why I reacted the way I did. I feel lucky that my wife understood my emotions and was gracious to support me and not be upset with my unfortunate statements. She told me that she told Bree that Jason came to our home and about my fight with Jason. Bree felt hurt about it, but asked my wife if she could come to our house on Friday to talk to me. We met on Friday, and Bree asked me about my conversation with Jason. I told her in detail about what happened, about how Jason's mom reached out to me, and I met him because of that. I told him about how Jason told me he broke up with his AP and was going to leave his job to be far away from that situation. Bree asked me about our fight and why I said things about the kids. Again, I was honest with her about what I felt. I apologized to her for having opinions as it was their relationship, but I just said those things in the heat of the moment. Bree asked my wife and me if we think Jason can change, as she is also very worried about the kids and the impact on them. She said that Jason has always been an amazing dad, and she's not sure if she can raise the kids without him. My wife told her that what Jason did was horrible and unforgivable, but we do not want to give opinions on their relationship, as only Bree can decide what to do about it. Bree told us that she wanted to talk to Jason, and if we could host both of them, so she feels safe. Jason and Bree came to our house on Sunday, and it was the first time in a month that Jason met his daughters. It was a very surreal moment to see how emotional he got after seeing them. I don't care what you all say, but I know that will never jeopardize my family because I would never want to be in Jason's shoes and how broken he looked when he had to face his daughters. There were a lot of tears all around. Bree and Jason discussed things privately. From the gist I got later, Jason apologized a lot to Bree and told her he would do anything to make things right. He told her that he's already put a 14-day notice at his workplace and vowed to never see or talk to his AP again. He told her that she could have access to his phone, and he will not take a job where he has to travel for work or stay away from her overnight. All he asked was for a chance to go for marriage counseling and work on things. He also offered that they could move to a different town near Bree's parents and get a fresh start. Bree accepted most of the things, except she does not want to move to a new place. They decided that Jason could move back into their house, and they will try to find a way forward from the situation. They both thanked us for mediating between them, and Jason also apologized to me for all the drama and told me that he will do everything possible to heal his marriage and make sure his daughters are taken care of. It all seemed like a good outcome on the surface, but my wife feels that my comments about their daughters may have guilted Bree into taking Jason back. I really did not intend to meddle in their relationship, and I know that they have a long, rocky road ahead if they want to recover from the situation. I just hope that they find the strength in doing that. I wanted to get opinions on if what I did was right in this situation, as I feel I accidentally caused both of them to get back together. And if Jason cheats in the future, I might be the one to be blamed because I talked to Jason first, and then my words guilted Bree into taking him back because of the kids. Let's read some relevant comments here. User 1 says, I hate to say this, but eventually when he cheats again or they break up, she's going to blame you and your wife for suggesting she stay because of the kids. Even though you told her that you and your wife would not give your opinions, you already had. Instead, what might have been helpful is letting her know that if he really is a great dad, he'll continue to be one no matter what, even if they are not together. Divorce doesn't automatically mean raising the kids alone, and she should do whatever she believes would be healthiest for her and her kids. Staying for that reason alone often means more pain in the end for everyone, including the kids. The whole reason your wife was upset with you is because you were minimizing the importance of who you actually made vows to. The same thing is happening with Bree and her husband. I could be wrong, but usually cheaters are cheaters or cheaters. OOP replies, to be honest, this is exactly why I'm feeling bad. I did not mean to, but my comments may have guilted her into staying with Jason. I thought I knew Jason for my whole life and never thought he was even capable of cheating on Bree. I don't trust him anymore and not sure if I can be great friends with him. User 2 says, tell your wife and Bree there is no statute of limitations. She can leave the scumbag anytime she wants. No reasons other than a scumbag. She should force him to tell the partner about the affair, and if they work together, tell the company. He should also tell his family and hers and get a post-nip with big penalty for adultery. OOP replies, the thing is, I really do not want to be involved in their affairs anymore. I feel Jason is my friend, but it feels weird to give them advice about their own marriage. I do not feel I have any right to tell them what they should do. I know Jason is a scumbag, but I hope that he rectifies his ways and does not hurt Bree again. I would always have it at the back of my mind that Bree might be in a crappy situation because of something I said in the heat of the moment. So regardless of, your thoughts on cheaters, whether or not they deserve grace, I personally don't, but that's neither here nor there. The original question was, is OOP an a-hole for saying that he prioritizes his kids' happiness over his spouse's? And I don't think that that's a question that has a correct answer because they're both extremely important. So, what came first, the chicken or the egg? It's kind of the same case here. I understand why his wife was kind of annoyed in that. And I also understand why OP may feel a little bit guilty about having or making his opinion on that known, inadvertently influencing this other relationship. They're getting back together because of the kids. So I don't think that he's the a-hole. Whether or not you agree or disagree, I don't think it makes him the a-hole either way. They're two grown adults and they can put out their own fire.